We're going to go ahead and launch into our goals for discussion today with activities of daily living. We are all about promoting autonomy, more on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about these other specific topics. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Alan Power, but he's very involved with the Eden Alternative, and they are proponents of this thing called the dementia domains of well-being. And I love Alan Power. He has a couple of books that I think are just fabulous, and a little bit about how this whole, why does this fit into today's discussion? It's because the domains of well-being, how do you help a person be their best selves? How do you help them attain joy? By helping improve their senses of identity and connectedness, security, and so on. And a big one there is autonomy. And so the idea with ADLs is that we want to have people do as much as they can for as long as they can. So we really, really want to promote people being their best selves, their most capable selves. Also, people are able to grow and learn. So while the brain is dying from dementia because there is brain tissue and neurons that are dying, there are also neurons that are still being created. So it is possible to learn even when somebody is living with dementia. And I think that the ability to do things for myself and be involved in my ADLs really helps me maintain my identity. And it also gives me a sense of meaning that there are things that I need to get done for myself on a regular basis. So what does promoting autonomy look like? So it's this idea of doing with instead of for. So rather than buttoning up your sweater for you because it's faster, I build time into my day to allow you to do the buttons yourself, even if it takes you more time. Or maybe, and we'll talk about hand under hand, I can help you do it while still allowing you to essentially be in charge. So my goal is that I really want to focus on what are the things that you can still do versus focusing on the skills that you have lost. One of the ways that I promote autonomy is by giving lots and lots of choices. We'll talk more about that. And I make sure that I keep any instructions that I give very concise and that I add visuals whenever possible. So starting today talking about bathing, so honoring the routine and the preferred language. When I was teaching in long-term care, what I discovered is that people, which I already knew because my husband had lived in long-term care, but it really reinforced for me the fact that bathing doesn't often happen on the schedule of the person who's being bathed. It's based on the schedule of the staff, the schedule of the community. And so one of my students shared one time, she said, we had this lady who would just like freak out every time I tried to put her in the shower, and she would scream and she would yell. And I thought, if somebody was trying to get me into a shower at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would scream and I would yell because I'm not a morning shower person. I'm an evening shower person. And when I would poll my classes and say, so raise your hand if you're a morning shower person, about half the class would raise their hand. Raise your hand if you're an evening shower person, about half the class would raise their hand. So people really do have a strong preference, and it is what they have incorporated into their routine their entire lives. So back to this student, she said, so anyway, I got curious. I wondered, would she perhaps be better, react more positively to a shower if it happened in the evening? Because maybe she's like me. Maybe she's an evening shower person. And so she talked to management. They agreed to try showering this woman in the evening instead, and all of the problems went away. So with all of the things that we're going to be talking about, we really want to put as much attention as we can into honoring people's routines. And as far as preferred language goes, maybe it's not saying it's time to get into the shower. Maybe the word shower is triggering. Maybe we say it's time to get washed up. Maybe what can be helpful is if I say, guess what? Hey, mom, it's spa time. Let's go do the spa. And I have the bathroom all set up so that I've got soft music playing, and we treat it like something that's special that we get to do together. So I talked about autonomy and that we want to offer people choices. Choices in terms of timing. So to be able to say, would you like to take your shower now? Like if I knew that my dad was a morning shower person, I might say to him at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is when he usually showered as a healthy guy, hey, Dad, would you like to shower now? Or shall we wait 15 minutes until you've finished your coffee? Or whatever, so that he suddenly has just two very small choices, but they're important choices. He is the person who is now a part of this whole process because he's picking when it's going to happen. Also materials. So even if somebody is nonverbal, for instance, I can have two different kinds of soap and I can say, let's see, today shall we do this one? And I hold it to their nose, or this one. And they may be able to point to the one that they want. Or, hey, I've got this green towel or I've got the white towel. Which would you prefer today? And there may be a possibility that they say, I don't care what color the towel is, and I have just irritated them. But there's also the possibility that they will choose the one that they want. And once again, they feel like they have a bit of power. As much as possible, I want to assign somebody tasks. So I'm assuming now that a person, for instance, needs some assistance in the shower. I've already determined that. And so what I might do is give them the face cloth to hold on to, or I might say, can you please hold the shampoo? Or I might give them a task like rinsing off. So I've got the handheld shower piece. I'm going to rinse off your arms. Why don't you rinse your face? And why don't you rinse your private parts? Sometimes people have an issue getting their head wet. And so I often suggest that if there is a possibility of having somebody maybe go to the beauty parlor once a week to get their hair washed, or maybe we have a chair set up in the kitchen so that there's a way that we can get them to lean back a little bit, do it sitting up, maybe even in the bathroom, they could sit in a commode and I could have them tip their head back and wash it. Keeping hands occupied. So one of the things that I ran into also with the professional caregivers is that they sometimes worked with people who were kind of grabby. And so especially if it was a woman and she was showering a gentleman who might be a bit grabby. And so what I would recommend is that they keep his hands occupied. And so maybe I have like two little rubber ducks that I have him hold on to, or maybe I have him hold a washcloth in each of his hands so that he needs to actually let go of something in order to be able to grab me. Teepa Snow, already mentioned as a hero, says that if you're not sweating, the room is too cold. This is the number one reason why people get agitated about the shower process or the bathing process, is because oftentimes people are people are just too cold. We take their clothes off and it's really kind of chilly. I'm comfortable because I'm still wearing my jeans and my sweatshirt, right? But I want it to be warm in that room, so it's very, very comfortable. I want this to happen as quickly as possible if there are any issues around bathing. And so make sure that you have everything ready in advance. Some people will wear an apron and they'll have like small size bottles in their pockets of the apron so they can just pick them out, squirt on the shampoo, and so on. A privacy drape for dignity and comfort. So if there's somebody who is a little uncomfortable being naked, that maybe they would be more comfortable if we had them sitting in a commode chair in the shower or sitting on a bench in a shower, and we are able to drape a cloth over them so that they feel more comfortable. There was a community that I know of in France where they found that here were these people who had grown up going to beaches where everybody was naked. Like that was normal. People run around naked. And here they are taking a shower with somebody who's kind of a stranger to them because they may have forgotten who their loved one is, or they might be in a community. And so to solve for that, what they did is they installed wallpaper that was a scene of people on beaches naked. And it got rid of some of the anxiety. I think that being creative, there's a lot of room for creativity. So consider the frequency. I think that a lot of us are used to showering every day. And so we feel like the person with dementia should shower every day. And we need to really think about whether or not that's necessary. If they're not terribly active, if they have not had a lot of toileting issues, then maybe they need to get bathed once a week. or twice a week. Maybe what we do is we have them when they're using the toilet, we can come in and do a quick little wash, have a little pitcher of warm water on hand and do a quick little wash while they're on the toilet. Some people will talk about things like washing one body part each day. Hey, mom, today we're going to just wash your arm, and tomorrow we're going to wash the other arm, and so on. And sometimes it can be helpful to have some non-rinse soap products, especially for toileting areas, if it's really an issue and you can't get somebody wet on a regular basis. Not preferred, but it's an option. When somebody is undressed for shower, you want to pay a lot of attention to what their body looks like. Are there any sores forming? Is there any kind of skin lesions that maybe you don't notice because they're dressed most of the time? Checking out the Stumptime Dementia blog, that is because I really love that blog. And the woman who runs it, her name is Kitty Norton. She has a fabulous video about showering. That's kind of tongue-in-cheek and funny, but it's still very informative. And then also don't forget about adding music, adding singing, trying to keep it light when we're going through bathing with our sweetie with dementia. Products to assist with bathing. So the chair that you see that's got kind of the sliding rails, this I found out about from one of the people who is in the support group that I facilitate. And they used this for her mother-in-law because the steps, the feet go on either side of the bathtub. And so she starts outside the bathtub. She sits on the chair and they slide her towards the bathtub. They lift one leg, then the other leg, and then they have her in the bath where they can either bathe her there or they can transition her into a commode or something. And then the picture on the right, I'm just trying to show you that there are lots of things that we should probably have in a shower for a person who's living with dementia, like grab bars, like a fold-out seat. And we want to have the ability to either have there be a shower that's on its own pouring down water, or that we can use to manually wash a person. Oopsie, let me go back for a second. So yeah, I'm going to move on from there. And I am realizing as I'm doing this that I actually don't have my latest deck. So I might pop out and bring that back up because there are some things that a picture that I saw that was missing, but I'll tell you what the picture was that was missing. And it was, again, something that was told about me by somebody who I was coaching, who's living with dementia. They were using a product I hadn't even heard of, which is a toilet seat that is actually mechanical. So you have the person stand and then the toilet seat comes up kind of behind them, and then they can slowly lower themselves onto the seat from standing. My husband, who's in the picture we're looking at right now, he was almost impossible, to get on a toilet seat because it was really hard to get him to bend at the waist. So chatting a little bit about eating. So again, honoring the routine as much as possible. Having him do as much as possible on his own. So I might want to give him like a bowl if food is flying off the plate. I might want to have him eat out of a bowl with a spoon. I want to get really off my high horse about neatness here. This is about having him eat by himself. And if food goes everywhere, so what? We clean it up afterwards. And maybe we have like a plate, I used to put sort of a shower curtain on the floor so that it would catch things. And I'm going to show you in a second a bib kind of thing that I think is really awesome. Using finger foods, if that's all that a person is able to do at this point. Think about where they're sitting. So because we have this, I'm talking about visual issues here. So Teepa Snow talks about binocular vision, which is that a person living with dementia often starts to have a smaller visual perspective. And so a person living with dementia who's sitting at a table, if their head falls into just sort of a natural sitting position, the plate, if it's right at the edge of the table, falls out of their range of view. So they might not even see the plate. And so sometimes you need to push the plate a little bit further out in front of them so that it's something that they see in their resting position. This is why we sometimes in communities run into situations where somebody is eating off of another person's plate, for instance, because your plate is easier for me to see than my own plate. So other visual issues, avoid clutter. And this is both things that are on the table as well as things that are on the plate. So some people will just put one food at a time on the plate. Or also consider, again, back with visual issues, color issues. So people living with dementia do have a hard time seeing things that are the same color in the same plane. And so mashed potatoes on a white plate, for instance, might be hard to see. So Teepa Snow demonstrates this technique called hand under hand. And so I'm using a variation of it here in this picture. And the variation is that I am having my husband hold on to my wrist rather than us actually doing a hand under hand hold. And the reason for that is that he, in addition to frontotemporal dementia, backing up for a second, frontotemporal dementia often it has a very unwelcome friend, which is ALS. And so he had very ALS type symptoms. And so he was rigid and he wouldn't have been able to hold on to my hand. And his arms were very locked up. It was hard to move them. But what this does, and this all came about, by the way, because he was choking when he was eating. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've heard that people can start choking because of dementia, but he doesn't seem like he's that far along. I took him to a speech person and they checked his throat and they said that his swallow mechanism was fine. So, wow, why is he choking? Somebody said to me, have you tried doing hand under hand eating? Because at this point, because he could no longer hold a spoon, he could no longer bring the instrument to his mouth, we were feeding him, just like poking something in his mouth. When we switched to hand under hand and I would kind of have him lean forward and bring the spoon up to his mouth. So he would be involved in the process of scooping the food off the plate, bringing the spoon to his mouth, and the choking issues went away. And I believe that it was because this is how he had been eating his whole life. To suddenly just be sitting there and have food poked in his mouth, it was something that his body didn't really know how to handle. Please get curious if a person isn't eating. Again, I've run into this in long-term care communities, and it drives me nuts when somebody is sitting in front of a full plate of food and then they get up and leave. And I talk to the staff and I say, so what's going on? And they were like, yeah, she's not hungry today. And I think, really? I didn't see you get curious. So I was at a community one time, and this would also apply to a person living at home, but there was a woman who was just looking at her food, The other three people at her table were eating, they were having breakfast. And I said to her, it looks good, doesn't it? And she said, yes, it looks good. And I waited a second and I said, you should eat it. And she said, should I? And I said, eating it would be a good idea. And so again, she just stared at her plate. And I said, pick up your fork, how about? So she picked up her fork. And where I'm going with this, which you see, is that every step of the way, she didn't understand the process any longer. So I had to tell her to cut a piece of food. I had to tell her to pick up the food with her fork and put it in her mouth. I had to tell her to chew. Procedural memory is something that gets hammered oftentimes in people living with dementia. So get curious. Is it that they have forgotten how to eat? Is it that they don't remember what this food is? Is it that they have sores in their mouth? Is it that their dentures aren't fitting properly? We need to try and figure those things out. And for a person who is always hungry, so this was my husband, constantly in the beginning, he eventually stopped being this way, but he was constantly going into the kitchen and eating like one bite out of every piece of watermelon that was on a plate, or one bite out of every peach in the fruit bowl. But more than that, he could still get into the refrigerator and he was constantly pulling things out and eating them. So what we would do is at mealtime, maybe we would stagger things. Like in the morning, we'd have him sit down and eat a piece of toast. Then 15 minutes later, we'd have him sit down and give him a little bit of eggs or maybe a little bit more toast. And then people talk about, my mom only eats ice cream. And my answer to that is, well, where is she in her disease? If she is not very advanced in her disease, then yeah, we need to solve for that problem. But if they are very late in the disease and there is only one food that they will eat, we just need to ask about the cost and benefit of denying them that food given where they are in their trajectory. So preserving dignity with eating. So there's a company called Eugaria, Eugaria, and they sell these products that are just so respectful. dignified for people who are living with dementia. And I love this. It looks like this beautiful kind of cowl, but if you lift it up, underneath it, there's actually a waterproof bib. And it just closes really easy with Velcro in the back. They make them for men and women. They come in different styles and they're machine washable. So it's fine if the top one, the beautiful piece, gets covered with food because it's going to go in the wash anyway, but people don't feel like they're wearing a bib, which can be problematic. And then, of course, there are utensils that are better and worse for people whose hands shake or who have trouble getting to their target or who drop their forks. So this is just one example. There are tons of these online. Talking about toileting, that I really want, keep track of input and output. Because we are machines, right? We take things in, we put things out. And I found sometimes that I would sort of lose track of the fact that, wow, I think it's been 2 days since my husband's had a bowel movement. And so I eventually learned that I really needed to keep track of that stuff, because if it's been 3 days and he hasn't had a bowel movement, something's wrong and we need to try to figure it out. And also with urination, if the urine flow is really limited, we need to keep track of that. Dignified language for invitation. Some people are fine if you say, like, hey, mom, let's go use the toilet. Some people are awesome with that. Some people really push back. I've been using the toilet myself for 80 something years. I don't need you to tell me that it's time to use the toilet, when in fact, she kind of does. So then what I might do instead is have some kind of scheduled timing. Maybe every 2 hours, I invite my mom to use the restroom. And instead of saying, hey, let's go use the restroom, I just say, hey, would you come with me? I need to show you something. And what I have found over and over and over again with people with dementia is that they are still very interested in helping me. So if I ask them for help with something and they agree, come on, let's go for a little walk. We can go for a walk. We pass by the bathroom and then I can say, oh, look where we are. Let's stop in. And it's a lot easier once they're already there, once they've gotten themselves going. We might want to explain the steps before they actually act them out, and remove things from around the house that could be mistaken for a toilet. So if there is a potted plant that somebody is urinating in, or some kind of a large vase that they are urinating in, well, obviously, if that you want to remove those things, but you might want to eliminate that possibility at the outset. So kind of look around. I will also share with you a story of a lady who called me up. She said, I'm having a real problem with my husband. I cannot train him to poop in the toilet. He's forgotten that that's where you have a bowel movement. And so I will see him starting to pull down his pants and squat. And then I say to him, no, 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 get up, get up. And I'm trying to pull his pants on and he's trying to have a bowel movement. And she said, I just don't know what to do. How do I teach him to use the toilet? Excuse me. And my advice to her, and I did check in with her afterwards and she was like, it works, yay. But my advice to her was, you know what? You're not going to win this battle. You're not going to be able to, you're most likely not going to be able to teach him, hey, when you feel like the urge to poop, go to the bathroom. So what I might do instead, and what I suggested to her, is pick up some of those little pads that you'd use for a dog. And when he's starting to squat, you just slide one underneath him and then he'll poop onto that, pee onto that, and then you just throw it away. It sounds kind of awful, right? But it works and it preserves his dignity. I'm not yelling at him. He's doing what he feels is the thing that he needs to do in that moment. Something else I wanted to say, about signage. So I've got that little thing there, the arrow pointing to the toilet. So it's not a bad idea if a person can't find the toilet. Like one of the people in my support group just last week, she said, every now and then, like something will change. And she said, what's changed now is that in our apartment, which has 2 doors, the door to the bedroom and the door to the bathroom, my husband said, where's the bathroom? She said, I couldn't believe it. Like it's one of 2 choices, but he could not figure out how to get to the bathroom. And so what we talked about was just hanging something on the bathroom, like a picture of a toilet or the word toilet. A lot of people do lose the ability to read as their dementia progresses, but they don't necessarily lose the ability to read a word. They might lose the ability to read a string of words. Products help with toileting. So yeah. Oh, I think this is the thing that I was talking about earlier. Sorry about that. When I was talking about something else, that for toileting, the thing that's all the way on the right is the thing that you stand up and then you slide the seat behind the person at their standing height, and they start to sit on it so slightly, and then you can ease them into it and lower it. The one in the middle, a commode that can be kept by the bedside if they have difficulty getting to the bathroom at night. And can also be, they have ones like this that can also be in the shower. So sometimes people will just sit and pee on their bench in the shower, and that's fine, of course, because we're going to wash all that away. But if there's a possibility that they'll have a bowel movement there once they're covered with the warm water and they're relaxed, then we want to get something that has that little catch bucket with it. And then there are many, 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 many different solutions that raise the toilet seat, that have grab bars. And this one is sort of an all-in-one, the one that's all the way to all the way, the white one that's all the way on one side of the screen. That little thing underneath the bars is a bidet. And so many people find that when they're supporting a loved one with dementia, that an aftermarket bidet is a huge help, especially one that you can have processed to have warm water come out instead of cold water. To be able to just shower a person's bum while they're sitting right there is hugely helpful. Moving on with dressing. So it can be really helpful. So again, I want you to do as much as you can for yourself for as long as possible. And so in the beginning, I would say, hey, why don't you pick out the clothes you're going to wear today? But it may start to reach a point where the choices become overwhelming. And so what I might do is just have there be 3 shirts in the closet and 2 pairs of pants. And I ask them to go pick something out of the closet. It might be that we reduce it to today's clothes, that I hang up the shirt, I hang up the pants that we're going to wear today, and I ask them to please get their clothes out of the closet. And when they get there, there's only one choice, so they can't make a mistake. So we help them, again, retain some dignity. Labeling the drawers, just putting either a picture or a word on each of the drawers that says underpants, socks, and so on. I need to be respectful of odd choices, and I know a lot of people have a hard time with this, especially if they're going to be leaving the house with their loved one. And mom comes downstairs and she's wearing 2 sweaters and a pair of pants that don't really go with the sweaters. It's up to you, your level of tolerance there. And it's up to what you think the person that you're caring for would in their heart of hearts prefer. So I don't want to argue and say, you don't need 2 sweaters. What are you doing? Instead, I might say, wow, those sweaters are beautiful. And I wonder whether we should maybe keep one on and carry the other one in case you get cold, or just wait until they get cold. If mom comes downstairs and she's wearing a shirt and she has her brassiere on the outside, for instance, I'm not going to let her go out of the house that way. I would have a conversation with her. And I might just say, oh my gosh, I do that same thing sometimes. Tell you what, this would be better if it was on the inside. Shall we? And I try to reason as much as I can reason with her to change the order of her garments. We can help somebody by laying things out in order. So I might put their pants on the bed, and on top of that, put the shirt, and on top of that, put the undergarments, and on top of that, put the socks, for instance. I do want to be careful again about that color issue. So if we're going to be wearing a pair of khaki slacks and a camel hair sweater, I don't want to put that on a beige bedspread because it becomes invisible. All the colors start to blend together. We want to have clothing that is easy to put on and remove. I still remember the day that my husband came to me so frustrated because he said, my buttons don't work. My buttons don't work. And I said, wow, that's terrible. Let's see what we can do together about that. And so I was familiar with Tipa's Hand Under Hand. I was able to work with him to get the buttons buttoned, but then I got rid of all the buttoned up shirts in his closet, and we removed them with shirts that were slip over. There are also there are a number of clothing manufacturers that make things that are easy to get on and off, which we'll talk about in just a second. I want to make sure that we have a friendly environment, again, an environment that's warm enough that they're comfortable getting dressed. And as already described, easy for them to find things. So looking here, so Joe and Bella is one of my favorite manufacturers of clothing that is easier for people to put on and take off, but it's also because they will have side zips that go all the way down the sides, as well as they have some that have a zip right in the crotch area. So if somebody is wearing briefs, for instance, it would be a lot easier. They don't need to take all of their clothes off to change briefs, which I think is wonderful. And then the shoes on the right, I learned about from one of the people in my support group. She got them for her husband. They are actually shoes for people with diabetes, but she uses them for her husband with dementia because one Velcro flap pulls all the way open, the next Velcro flap pulls all the way open, and then it's just a flat shoe bed, and it's really, really easy for someone to get their foot inside of it. Toothbrushing. So we use the tell, show, do, which is that I tell you what we're going to do, then I show me doing it, and then we do it. And so, of course, as with all of the other things that we talked about, I am going to let you do as much as you can for as long as possible by yourself, but there may come a point where I need to give you verbal and then visual clues about how to get this done. So we talked about briefly the fact that procedural memory can get really hammered by dementia. And so if you think of something like brushing teeth, saying to somebody, hey, go brush your teeth, is actually asking them to do something that involves many, many, many steps. And when I will ask a group of people to say, okay, tell me, list for me the 10 steps that you first come to mind for you about toothbrushing, and lots of time, and they'll start in all different places. Some people's first step will be to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. Somebody else's first step will be to uncap the toothbrush. But then we have to think about things like finding the bathroom, or uncap the toothpaste, finding the bathroom, finding the toothpaste and the toothbrush, and then all of the steps that go along with it. So we need to break things into little chunks if we're still just asking people to do things on their own. Remember that brushing the teeth doesn't have to be at a sink. I ran into this with a paid caregiver who was helping me. She was very, very short. My husband was very, very tall. And so she was doing a very poor job of flossing his teeth because she couldn't really reach them. She was just doing the best she could. And so I said, wow, how about if we have him sit on the bed and just bring a little basin, and we can use that to give him a little bit of water and let him spit. Of course, eventually he stopped spitting, and I then switched to a toothpaste that didn't have fluoride so that it was fine for him to swallow. As with all things that we do when we're supporting a person with dementia, it's important to be able to slow down and let them do things at their own pace. Don't forget to floss. It can be really hard to floss another person, but it's such an important part of tooth care. Because my husband's teeth were something that he was always very proud of and very fastidious about as a healthy person, I found a dentist who was great with him, and we went to see her every 3 months to get a full-on cleaning. And he was always okay with that. Not everybody would be. One of the things that they did is they always they knew what his favorite music was, and they always had his music playing in the dental office when we got there, which was just super sweet, and it really helped him calm down. There are now more and more traveling dentists, or at least dental hygienists, who will come to the home and do a cleaning, on a monthly basis or whatever it is that you deem necessary. And I highly recommend that we do that. I just see so many people in long-term care who don't have any teeth, and it's because they stopped taking care of their own teeth at some point, and nobody was aware that they needed to actually help them continue the process. So a little bit about Zinnia, and because Zinnia helps with all of these things. So we do have this activity of daily living channel. And then these are some of the activity of daily living videos that are available. And as you can see, for many of the things that we would help a person with, we can use these videos, and it's extremely helpful to either watch the video just before we do it or to build the video into the daily routine. Every night before we go to bed, we watch the good night video with friendly messages. And now grandma knows that it's bedtime because she's familiar with that video.
So here you'll see all the ADL videos that we have. And the point with these videos is not to teach a caregiver on how to do these things, but it's for the person with dementia to watch with the caregiver. And it puts people in the right mindset to maybe be more receptive to exhibiting that behavior. So drink water. We know that dehydration could be a problem. So this drink water video shows people drinking water successfully and enjoying it, and makes it very kind of appealing. And I turned the volume off so you can hear me, but you can hear, if you're watching the video, the water's hitting the glass, and it sounds really, really great. Then we show pictures of people drinking together. We've heard from users that they'll often put lemon slices in their water now because they see that in the video. And then we also will show people drinking water and dogs drinking water and cats drinking water, and anything that we think that could, help to reach the person who's viewing it and make them more interested in doing the behavior. One of the users that we work closely with does hydration hour with her grandmother every day at 11 o'clock. And they sit there and they have a glass of water at 11. They watch the video and they talk together, and like, this now might be a good time to drink water. The baby's drinking water. Let's do that. And so they do. And we're doing research in Vancouver with the University of British Columbia and Vancouver General Hospital. And they found that not only are these ADL videos specifically effective, but they're even better if you use them as part of a routine. So that's an example of the drinking water video. That same person who uses the drinking water video regularly with her grandmother also uses good night. So they'll put this on at night when it's time to wind down. And she reported that before they would start watching this on a regular basis, it would take 3 times to put her grandmother to bed, and her grandmother would go back up and get back down. And so now that they watch this regularly, her grandmother goes to bed the first time and stays that way. So, really good feedback and outcomes on this. And so going to bed shows all the activities that you might have before you go to bed in a routine. And then, brush your teeth. Allison talked about brushing teeth. She talked about eating today. We've got videos that support those activities as well. So I encourage you to go onto the platform and explore these and try them out and see if they work for you.
So let me tell you 2 things. One, if you're running the Zinnia app, so there's a difference, right? Like back in 2019, all we had was a version that you play on a computer. And you could use, you could cable that, use an HDMI cable, go to your television, and you could play that. But it would play a video and then it would stop. If you're running the app, it'll roll from one video into the next video. So that's one thing for you to know. The other thing is that there's a new channel called Longer Videos. And so in that channel, we have videos that are longer. And there's specifically a video that we have been testing. And Lynn, to your question about long-term care, we've been testing it in long-term care communities because we were asked by somebody who is in long-term care. He said, look, show me a video that will keep a room full of people living with dementia sitting down, engaged for 20 minutes. I just need a way for my staff to get a 20-minute break and know that reliably, right, that they can pretty much count on that 20 minutes. So there's a format that you'll see one in there called Watch with Allison. This video is me, and I welcome the person, and I talk about dogs and about dogs that I have loved. And it's very like Mr. Rogers-y kind of format. And then we watch the dogs video together. And while the dogs video is playing, I am talking over it, talking about the dogs we're looking at, asking them about dogs in their life. Then we pop back in and it's me again. And I talk about cats, and then we watch a cats video, and then I do babies, and then we do a baby video. But I've tested this now in 4 long-term care communities. It's 41 minutes long, and it's been wildly successful. People don't get up and leave, and they answer the questions. And when I do exercises, they do the exercises with me. And when I invite them to breathe, they breathe with me. So I think that it's a format that for which there really is a place for people who need more than a 6-minute break.
I want to speak quickly about the longer videos. And this is the Let's Watch Together. that Allison was talking about. So this is 41 minutes long.
Hi, my name is Allison, and I'm really glad that I get to spend some time with you today. What I love is that we are right where we're supposed to be.
So, Allison speaks to the audience. They might sing and then they'll say, hey, did you ever have a dog? We're going to watch the dog video. And then we'll move into the dog video and Allison will speak as a voiceover and talk and give facts about dogs or ask questions about dogs. And, as she mentioned, this has become really, really engaging for people. So another thing that I encourage everybody to try out. What we have is a platform that's both on the web and on apps. And these apps are good for phones and tablets, both Android and iOS, and connected TVs. So if you've got a Roku TV, an Amazon Fire Stick, Android TV, Apple TV, or Samsung, you can find our app there. And when you download the app to your device, it acts just like YouTube. So it's just as easy. You hit a button and you can pop up our entire platform. And this is what it looks like. This is our front page. You can see we've got some channels here and featured videos that are often seasonal or new. Our new videos here that we'll highlight. And then we have this section for caregivers, which is also something that is relatively new. We started out with videos that were really focused on engagement. And then we realized we moved into that these videos can be used to reduce agitation and calm people down, that we can use these videos to help ease the accomplishment of ADLs, but all the videos were specifically built for someone living with dementia. So slow moving, gently paced, free of plot or dialogue. But we want to serve caregivers as well. So these three categories are how to use Zinnia, so help gives people understanding of how to get the most out of our product. Some self-care, so this is like breathing and yoga. So, and they're short because we know that caregivers don't often have a lot of time to do that type of thing. And then we also have this caregiver education. And so the webinar that Allison just delivered, helping with ADLs, we've got a video for that here as well. So, we try to highlight and go in deep on some of these webinars on various topics, but we also want to have our platform with this information in a more bite-sized, consumable way. All right, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take good care.